Hey guys, it's Rick here, back with another video. I'm going to show you how I do my lift kits today. I'll make two videos, one for the simpler lift kit that's easier to do, and then one for the ones with smaller bases that you can't do the same kind of lift kit on. But let's get right into it. As you can see here, I done started and did part of this one just to take some time out of it. But what you're going to need is some roll pins, or they're listed at the hardware store as tension pins. As you can see, they're just a round metal pin. It's got a little slit in them, and I use 1/8 is the diameter, and the smaller ones are 5/8, and I also, for some of them, I use 3/4. As you can see, they're just a little bit longer. I try to get my big fingers out of the way. These are some small pieces. But the reason that is because, as you can see here, you see how narrow this is on this truck, and this is the one I'm going to do the other video on. But you see how wide it is in comparison here. You need the little narrow ones, the little narrow ones. They won't quite fit across there right. Whenever you go to do your lift kit, your tires will hit this, and instead of the tip of the pin like it ought to. Now, the way I was doing this before is I would take my Dremel with a cutoff wheel, and I'd cut inside that slot right there to make it wider, so I could take a factory axle and pop in there, because that little slit's too narrow. It won't just pop in. You'll screw your axle up and bend it up trying to get it to go in there, and it won't do it. But since I watched Deals on Diecast video using the tube and the needles, I have got the 1/16 inch tubing, aluminum tubing from Hobby Lobby, and it slides, as you can see, it slides in and out of there quite nicely. So I've modified my version and took some work out of it. So all you got to do is, as you can see, that tubing slid out right there. You just get it level, and you mark your right there at the end level again, and you cut that off with your cutoff wheel and knock your burr off of it. And I've already done that with this piece here. You see they're the same length, and that just fits in there. It basically, because the internal diameter of this is too large for a needle, and it'll bounce around in it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It'll bounce around in there. You see all that play in there? It's too loose, and actually part of it can go in and out of that groove there, and it won't stay in place. So whenever you go to glue it, it won't lock itself in like it ought to. It'll be cock-waised or cock-sided, and it won't look right. Your wheel will wobble, and it might not even stay in there at all in some cases. But this tube, it fits quite nicely inside of this other one, and then the needle itself fits inside of this tube quite tight. You see that there? It's not sliding or anything, so it's a nice snug fit. And the reason you want that is because those needles, when you cut your axe off, you pop that needle through there, and you see that needle head sticking up right there. It holds itself in place like a factory axle, but these needles have nice rounded heads, and they look a lot better. And what you do is, whenever you go to glue it, you feed that into this tube here, and make sure you keep you a good space in there in between that tube and that tire right there where it butts. Which this one isn't glued, so it's sliding, but once it gets glued, it'll stay in place. Now, I've already done that on this truck on the back side, and I'm not going to bore you with watching me do it on the front axle as well, but I wanted to get you a version here to see. As you can see, you see the space in between the roll pin and axle tube versus the tire here. You want that little bit of slide. Otherwise, if it's too tight up against there and you have glue still on the tip of that axle tube, it'll glue that tire in place and it won't move. So you want that little bit of play. And plus, if you don't have that play and you have it up tight and you don't have glue on there, but it glues the pin in, it's going to be so tight it's going to be a tight roll. But as you can see, that roll is pretty smooth. Another thing, once you get all this assembled, before you put your tires on, what you want to do is, let me see if I can see it here. You see right there how I've taken and lined up with the notch where the tire normally goes, and took my cutoff wheel on the Dremel and put a little notch right there in the tip of this round piece here. The reason I did that is because whenever you get all of this assembled together and you go to glue it on there, if that notch isn't there, then this axle on that round part is just going to slide just like that. But right here in this notch, what it does is that axle or that roll pin will sit right in there, and it won't go nowhere. It'll slide back and forth, but it won't jimmy across. So what you do is, once you get everything assembled up, the little piece of tube inside of your tension pin here, you put you a little bit of glue on each one of these where you've notched it. I went ahead and done it on both sides, as you can see there. You put glue right in those notches, some super glue. I use the Loctite gel control super glue. That's what I use. It helps out a little better. It ain't runny and it'll stay in place. And you just super glue that down, and then once that's good and adhered, it's good and snug. Now whenever you go to do it, make sure you look from this way and you center up your axle tube on there like that, and it's not off center, because if it's off center, then one wheel is going to stick out further on one side than it is on the other side. It's not going to be centered up. Your wheels is going to look funny. As you can see on the back here, it's good and center. If that axle tube wasn't center, then that would be way offset. It'd look more like that whenever the wheels were actually all stretched out. But I mean, you could probably compensate for it, but it'd just be too difficult. So the easiest thing to do is, whenever you glue it, make sure it's good and center to begin with. And then when you put your wheels on there, once this is all good and set up, you put you a little bit of super glue, like this axle tube right here would be inside of there. You put you just a little bit of super glue on the tip of that, and since I use a gel one, I can't make it run down in there, so I just put it on the tip. And I slide the piece of the axle that's inside the tire, I slide that in there, and make sure I keep me a little space. And I made me a spacer. This is the base of a M2. I cut up with my cutoff wheel on my Dremel, and I put me a little notch in there. And what I do is I'll stick that down in between. That axle tube and the back side of that wheel like that, and I'll push it up tight, and then I'll pull it off. And whatever excess glue was on this it's taken off on my little tool I made. So I sit there and spin it for a little bit, just in case there is some super glue somehow got on the axle. So while it's drying, I'll just sit there and spin it all the way out on the end. So as that super glue dries, if there's any on the axle, it don't super glue the tire to the axle itself and keep it stationary. If you keep moving it while it's drying, then it's less likely to glue the tire stationary. So that's what I do, and that's how I do this lift kit. Now, as you can see on this truck, how high the humps is on the wheel wells here. That's why this lift kit is the easiest, is because you have less work to do. It's just that simple. You just notch it out right there. As you can see on this little BMW MX-5 here that I'm going to be doing shortly, the wheel wells aren't so profound. So whenever you put that tire in there, you see how it's rubbing on that fender, on the fender wells right there. It won't turn whenever I put the lift kit on it. So what I'm gonna have to do is, I've made up a piece of a lift kit here, and it's just made out of these eyelets. And I'm gonna show you this in the next video how to do this. Is you just take these wire eyelets here, and you basically bend them at a 90-degree angle. Now I'll show you how to do that. And on some of them, you have to cut part of the eyelet off. The reason I did this is because inside this body right here, I don't know if you can see it in there, is the body bottoms out, and that eyelet will hold it up way too high, and I don't want it to look like a monster truck. I just want it to look like a lifted truck. So I had to cut that off so it can butt up against the wheel well there. It just needed that little extra space. So I'll put one of those on either side, and then I'll do the same process as before. I'll take the axle tubes, and I'll make them up with the tension pins in the axle tube, and I'll slide that inside this eyelet here and super glue it, and then I'll put my wheels on. But the thing with this is you want to make sure once you put all this together, because this is, you have to remember that this thickness here also adds thickness to this part of the body here. So whenever you do that, you don't want your tires to be set out real wide and look real funny, you know, because it adds width to it. But I'll show you all that in detail in the next video. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish this one up off camera, and whenever I do that next video, I'll start with showing you how this one looks all finished up. Oh, and by the way, this Jeep Scrambler here had a gold type similar rim to it, and I stole these gold wheels off of this Matchbox Jeep Hurricane here, this concept Jeep Hurricane, which I planned on putting real riders on one of these and painting it up anyway, so it doesn't hurt my feelings to chop the tires off of it. But I'll be back to y'all guys in just a little bit with another video on the other style of lift kit. Leave me some comments and let me know what you think. If there's any way you see that I can improve this method, let me know that as well. If it's helpful to you, also let me know that. I like to hear your feedback. I like to hear what y'all guys have to say. Just keep talking to me and let me know what's going on with you, and I might post my email address and or either my Facebook page. So if y'all take any of my methods towards customizing and use it on your own, you can send me pictures. I'd love to see what y'all guys are making as well. Thank you, and I'll be back to you in just a little bit.